Hello and kairete and shalom. My name is Philip, and I'm going to be covering some variations between the Hebrew Masoretic text of Genesis and the Greek Septuagint of Genesis. And for this, I'm going to be using the website katabiblon.com, which is a very good website for accessing and studying the Greek and Hebrew text of the Bible. Now you can show the translation and the interlinear, but we're not going to be cheating here. We're going to just be looking at the raw Greek and Hebrew, and I'll give you my translation and commentary. First, I want to start with the Greek Septuagint because I'm a little more fluent in Greek compared to how I am in Hebrew. So we're going to start off with the Greek Septuagint. Now, for those of you who do not know, the Greek Septuagint is the translation of the Old Testament into Greek, and it is believed to have been done around 400, 300 BC, I believe. The story goes there were like 70 or 72 Jewish scholars, and they all had their own separate room. Okay, and they all translated the Torah, the first 5 books of Moses, into Greek because I forget which Greek king, but there was a Greek king that wanted a copy of the Torah in Greek in the Alexandrian library. So he commissioned these 70 or 72 Jewish scholars to translate the text into Greek. And the legend goes that when they were all done, they compared their copies, and their copies were exactly the same. All their translations were the same, letter for letter. And then over the next few centuries, the other books of the Bible were translated into Greek. The writings, the prophets, and then the apocryphal text as well were translated into Greek. And that became the Greek Septuagint, which is also what the early church used. And if you look at the Greek of the New Testament, you'll find that Jesus and his disciples quoted from the Septuagint. And even the Apostolic Fathers quoted from the Septuagint. If you read like Barnabas, for example. All right, so let's get started here. I'm going to go over the Greek Septuagint first. So it says, "In arche epoisen hatheos tan uranon kai tengen." That says, "In beginning made the God the heaven and the land." In Hebrew, the Hebrew Masoretic, it says, "Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim va'et ha'eretz." That says, "In beginning created Elohim the skies and the land." So you see a key difference here that it's up for debate is Hashamayim in Hebrew, it says skies, and in the Greek it says uranon, heaven. So skies, plural, heaven, singular. I'll let you choose what you think the reading should be. I personally think that if you were to translate this into English, you should use the ancient Hebrew way of saying it. I don't think you should translate it as heavens or heaven. I think you should translate it as skies, even though that's not really linguistically correct in English. It more accurately preserves the ancient feeling and thought of the text, which in my opinion is most important when you're dealing with variations and translations. So, and then verse 2, "Ede gein eratos kai aketas kenatos kai skatos epeno tes abusu kai pneuma theu epifereta epeno tu eudatos." So it says, the yet land to be formless and empty, and actually, I think this is unseen, yeah. So it says, and yet land to be unseen and unformed, and darkness over the abyss, and Spirit of God moved upon the water. in Hebrew, it says, V'ha'eretz hayata taho vabaho ha'chashak al pinei tahom v'ruach Elohim marachapat al pinei hamayim. So it says, and the land existed formless and empty, and darkness over face deep, and Spirit Elohim moved over face the waters. So, to translate this in a way that's better understood in English, I would say, and the land existed formless and empty, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved over the face of the waters. So another interesting difference here is that this says the waters, plural, and this says water, singular. So that's an interesting difference. Is it skies or is it heaven? Is it waters or is it water? So I would, I'll leave that up to you. The way I see it is the plural form that the Hebrew has is more accurate. Now I said before that I believe the Septuagint is more accurate. When I said the Septuagint is more accurate, I mean there are some passages in the Septuagint that are not in the Masoretic. Alright, so for example, Esther in the Septuagint is much longer and it has God's name in it. But in the Masoretic, Esther is much shorter and does not. So there are some. So when I say the Septuagint's better, I mean in terms of preserving more passages that aren't in the Masoretic. But in terms of the actual language, the Hebrew is more accurate, of course. So I would translate it as skies, and I would translate it as waters. I wouldn't translate it as heaven or water. Of course, our understanding in English, there's not really a difference, but I believe keeping the pluralities of skies and waters in the Hebrew would be preserving the text in its more ancient, more correct form. So anyways, verse 3, Kai ipen hatheos genetheto phos kai agenetophos. So it says, and he said, the God, happen or exist light, and happened light. So, and God said, exist light, and there happened light. Phos is light. Alright, so in verse 3 in Hebrew it says, Ve'amar Elohim Yahi or Vayahi or. Sorry, it's kind of hard because there's no vowel point, so I'm kind of struggling pronouncing some of these. Anyways, it says, and he said, Elohim, exist light, and existed light. So, Elohim, by the way, Elohim means God. I believe a more accurate translation would be powers or power. Now, notice it's plural here, im. So I believe that, I don't believe it's referring to multiple gods, even though it's plural. I believe it's referring to, I believe this is a good case for the Trinity, actually. Elohim, so it's powers, the powers of God, I believe is a good way to translate Elohim. So I believe it's a good testimony to the Trinity in the Hebrew text, that you have powers referring to, in my belief, three separate persons of the Godhead. So I believe the Trinity, you can argue the Trinity with the Hebrew term Elohim. I've heard some people say that anyways. So there's not really any real differences here in verse 3. It's essentially saying the same thing. So now we go to verse 4. Kai aiden hatheos ta phos hati kalan kai diechoresen hatheos enemesan tu photos kai enemesan tu skatus. And in verse 4 here, it's, oh, sorry, let me translate this. It says, oops, it says, and he called the God, oh, no, Iden saw, and he saw the God, the light, that good. And he separated the God in the middle of the light and in the middle of the darkness. So in verse 4 in Hebrew it says, Vayara Elohim et Haor ki tov Vayavadil Elohim Bain Haor Vabain Ha Chashak. Sorry about that. Again, there's no vowel points. Okay. It says, and he saw Elohim, the light, that good. And he separated Elohim between the light and between the darkness. Okay, so not really any real major differences here. Essentially says the same thing. And then we have verse 5. Kai ekalesen hatheos ta phos emeren kai ta skatos ekalesen nukta kai ageneta espera kai ageneta proi emera mia. So it says, and he called the God, the light, day, and the darkness he called night. Okay, so day is emera, night is nukta, and it says, kai ageneta espera, kai ageneta proi emera mia. So it says, and happened evening, and happened morning, day 1. So in verse 5 of the Hebrew it says, Ve kara Elohim laor yom valachashach kara lila vayahi arak vayahi bakar yom achad. So it says, and called Elohim to light day, and to darkness called night, and existed Erev, evening, and existed Bakar, morning, Yom Achad, day 1, or day 1st. So I want to point out something here, a theological thing here. There are some people who believe in something called the gap theory, a theory that the days of Genesis are actually long periods of time, or that there is a gap between certain areas of the first few verses of Genesis. Yom, it says day 1, or day the 1st. It doesn't say one day. So you can't say that there's a gap between Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, or however you reconcile the gap theory. Because it says Akkad means first or one, and it's not before Yom. It's not one day. It's day 1, or day 1st. So I just wanted to point that out. If it's the first day, there can't possibly be any gap here. All of this happened on the first day. So that's my view on things. And again, in the Greek, emera mia, day 1. So that's what I would say for that. And then, of course, there are some people who say, well, Yom doesn't mean a 24-hour day. Well, it says evening and morning. It says Erev Vayahi Bakar Yom. Vayahi Erev Vayahi Bakar Yom. There happened evening and there happened morning, day 1. It's very clear that a day is defined by the preceding words, evening and morning. Evening and morning is what makes a day. So I believe that textually speaking, you can easily refute the gap theory or the idea that one day is a really long period of time, because a day in the Hebrew and in the Greek Septuagint, in the text itself, is defined as evening and morning. Anyway, sorry about that. That's just wanted to point that out. In verse 6 it says, Kai ipen hatheos genetheto steroma en meso tu eudatos kai esto diachorison en meson eudatos kai ageneta utos. So it says, and he said, the God, exist steroma, exist a firmament in the middle of the waters, and let it divide in the middle of the waters, and happened thusly. So this may sound a little confusing, so I'm going to give you a better English translation of this rather than a literal translation. So it says, and God said, let there exist a firmament in the middle of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters, and it happened so. So in verse 6 in Hebrew, it says, Ve'amar Elohim Yahi Rachia Batok Hamayim Vayahi Mavadil Bain Mayim Lamayim. So in Hebrew it says, and he said, Elohim, exist Rachia, exist an expanse, Batok, in middle, the waters, and exist Mavadil, for separating between waters to waters. So there's an interesting difference here in the way these are translated. So in Greek, you have steroma, which means firmament, and in Hebrew you have rachia, which is what the Greek was translating here, and it means expanse. So firmament versus expanse. I believe expanse is the better word here to use. Firmament is referring to like a hard shell, like a hard surface, whereas expanse would be everything between the firmament and the land. So I see it as a difference. I don't believe an expanse and the firmament is the same thing necessarily. So that's what I would. That's how I would see it. And also another reason why is because it says later on in Genesis that the birds fly in the expanse or the firmament. So if the firmament is a hard surface or a hard shell like thing, then the birds can't really fly in that. So that's why I see Rachia as a better translation. Now the question arises, well, why did the Greeks translate it like that then, if it's more accurate to just say expanse? The reason why is because I believe that they had an understanding of a different cosmology that we have today. So I believe that they believed that there was like a dome over the flat earth, and that's why they translated expanse as firmament. They were referring to this dome. And if you read Josephus refers to a crystalline firmament that the Jews believed was over the earth. Some creationists call this the canopy theory, that before the flood there was a crystalline firmament, and some flat earthers today even believe that there could be a dome over the earth now. So I think that's where this translation comes from. The Greek Septuagint translators were translating this with the understanding of a flat earth cosmology with a dome over the flat earth. Well, I think that will be all for now. We covered the first 6 verses of Genesis in both the Hebrew and the Greek. One more thing though, I want to show you the Genesis copy from the Dead Sea Scrolls, and let's see if we can read that. Alright, so I am on the deadseascrolls.org website, and I'm going to show you the Genesis scroll here from the Dead Sea Scrolls. It dates to late Hasmonean period, so that's about 100 BC. It is in Hebrew, and this preserves Genesis, the first few verses of Genesis. So it's a little fragmented here, so you can't really see Bereshit, but here it would say Bereshit, and then Elohim et ha-shamayim va'et ha-eretz. So it says, in beginning, Elohim, in the beginning, Bereshit bara. Bara would be here too. In beginning created Elohim the skies and the land. And then it says, Varuach Elohim marachapat al pinei hamayim. So it says, and spirit Elohim moved over face the waters. So this is really cool, because you can read this 2,100-year-old scroll today if you know biblical Hebrew, because the text from the Masoretic and the text of the scroll is the same. It's amazing. This scroll, just think about that, 2,100 years old, about, okay? Imagine how much history this scroll has survived in those caves. Like, this scroll has has a long history of, and it's been in those caves for all that time, and now we look at it today and we can read it. In my opinion, that is truly, truly incredible, that we can read this today. So that's all I wanted to talk about now. Next time we will go over, we will start with verse 7 and just continue on and see how far we get. So hope you enjoyed that, and shalom and irene, and stay perky.